Al Gretzky is the Communications Director for the Canadian chapter of the International Free Press Society. He has worked behind the scenes of many political campaigns and is a public speaker on issues of free speech. So Al Gretzky, it's a famous name. Any relation to the Great One?
Yes, he's proud to call me his uncle, and I'm more than happy to call him my nephew.
Okay. Well, that's out of the way. Okay, but you're a man in your own right, and you have your own interest, obviously, and you're a politician. You ran for federal parliament. As a matter of fact, I think you ran near around the same time I ran.
Yes.
For which party?
The Conservatives.
The Conservative Party?
Federally.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And but you didn't start off as a Conservative, I understand.
No, as a matter of fact, I did the entire gamut of the old line, if you don't have a heart when you're young, or if you're not a liberal when you're young, you're heartless, and when you get older, if you're not a conservative, then you don't have a brain. I actually went through that entire trek. I began being an NDPer in the Brant County area, and really it was for the fact that the gentleman that I was supporting at the time, Derek Blackburn was his name, I supported him because it was him. I didn't even consider the party so much, but I eventually learned how to get into the party, sort of.
Did you get into the Liberals after the NDP?
Yes, I had a brief stint in there, extremely brief. I don't even remember the individual at the time that I voted for, but that was my sort of trend toward the right, and then I passed through that zone very quickly. And then I then I was out of politics almost completely for the longest time until I heard of this fledgling little group called Reform. And they struck me as being the quintessential party because they were grassroots. They were going to let the people tell the upper echelon what to do and how to do it. And I thought we needed more of that. So I joined them. And then, of course, they went through their Reform Party to the United.
Alternative, yes.
Yeah, and from that point, then they joined with the Tories, and then they became the Conservative Party of...
Well, you left out a step, though, the Canadian Alliance.
Yes, I did, as a matter of fact.
Because I ran for the Canadian Alliance. Why'd you leave that at?
No, as a matter of fact, I did work in that for a time as well. But that was Mr. Stockwell's calling.
Yes, well, they were the official opposition at one point in time, so they got up there, and now, as you're quite correct, it's the Conservative Party of Canada. What's your opinion about the Conservative Party of Canada? Because in your history, you sort of thought that when you got to the Conservative Party, you had reached the summit.
Yes.
And then you had second thoughts.
It was more a case of having reached what I thought was the summit. I realized was more of a plateau from where you could look out and see where you had been from the past, and when you looked ahead, there was still a mountain to climb, because the CPC that I knew has suddenly become far, far centrist. And they have moved in, for example, the transparency in government. That's not happening. That was one of the things that I thought was that's why I fought for it. The lessening of government. Since the Conservatives taken over, it's expanded by 30%. The lowering of the debt, that's grown. Everything about it has been opposite to what I had learned before.
Right, so are you a supporter of the Conservative Party now?
I am supporter of a conservative point of view, but not specifically this Conservative Party. Mm-hmm. That having been said, I must make sort of a separation between the party and the man who leads the party, Stephen Harper.
What do you think of Stephen Harper?
He is a man among men. He's a visionary. He is an individual who cares about the people who are around him, regardless of what anybody else thinks. And if I could, I'll relate just a little story, sure, just so that people will understand. When I ran in 2006, and I lost that one, obviously, I was in Windsor about a week later visiting my son, and we were in a restaurant, and my cell phone rang. I answered the call, And on the other end is one Stephen Harper. And he called me to say how grateful he was that I ran and all the effort that I put in and how sorry he was that I had lost. Now, what makes this story interesting is that he could have had one of his underlings call me and say, just a moment, Stephen Harper wants to talk to you. But he didn't. He actually dialed the call himself because he was right there. That, to me, is the measure of the man. He truly is a person who cares about the people who are around him.
With 300 plus candidates, he must have had a very busy time calling everybody.
I would not want his phone bill, but nonetheless, I will not ever forget the fact that Stephen Harper did that. Just that to me makes the man.
What about his policies today, domestically?
Well, therein lies the problem, as I said, the transparency in government and all of the added the government expense. I understand what he's doing. He's trying to walk a very fine line between moving people from the center to a little more to the right. But my estimation, and my estimation only, the party has been stuck in that centrist mode way too long, and they need to get moving on with the business that they got in for.
What piece of legislation would you like to see him enact as soon as possible?
Transparency. Because with transparency, everything else is immediate. You cannot no longer hide the expenses, the deficits, the waste. That's all gone. And once you get rid of that, then the government itself becomes clearer and more open to the people. That would be one of the things. And why we're still messing with Section 13 and our freedoms, I have no idea. That should have been gone a long time ago.
Section 13 of the Human Rights Act.
That's correct.
Right.
The number one issue that when I joined in with the reform, that we passed a motion, which was in the platform of the Reform Party, which has been thrown to the curb by every other party, and that is the right to property, the right to own property. People in Canada don't understand. They don't have that. That was taken out of the Charlottetown Agreement. They all agreed not to put it in. So the land that you're on, you actually don't own it.
Well, surely we do have some sort of property rights just because of the common law.
Yes, we have common law property rights. The difficulty with that is that the government, by the same common law, can come in and arbitrarily take from you what is yours with no compensation whatsoever. One of the examples is in the gun control, for example, okay? They passed laws that said this gun, which was legal yesterday, is not legal today, and we don't care that you paid $2,000 to own it. You can't remove it from your home. You can't sell it. You're hung with it now, and they are not going to compensate you for that. They just took it away from you.
Right. What about any other political parties out there? Your opinion, perhaps, on the Green Party?
No, I shouldn't say what I'm thinking. I was thinking something humorous. The Green Party is an anomaly in the sense that they are trying to push an agenda which doesn't exist. The whole global warming aspect. It's a fallacy from the beginning to the end. So when you base your party on a fallacy, the party itself is a fallacy. And so I don't see the Green Party as an answer to anything.
What about Canada's foreign policies? I understand you probably like Harper for a lot of his foreign policies.
I like him because he stands up for the people that we've always known, for the people that we've always friended, for the people that we've always helped. He stands there for them, and he stands there with them. And it's not a matter of anyone telling him what to do. It's not a matter of the United States knocking on his door and saying, this is the policy you will follow, because for individuals who have followed Harper recently, you will see he's really at odds currently with Obama in the Middle East. Obama is a marshmallow. And Harper is rock solid on what he believes and what Canada is going to stand for. So,
let's talk about Obama for a minute. The Romney-Obama first debate was held just a day or two ago, and your opinion on that? Who won?
I read a tweet, Twitchy. It's an internet site where people send their tweets, and Twitchy put out a comment: best excuses for the debate. And to me, the top excuse why Obama lost that debate was, I didn't lose that, someone else failed it. And I thought that was just absolutely incredible. The second one was, I wonder if a kick in the butt is covered by Obamacare. But yes, no, Romney won it, and he won it with knowledge, forthrightness, and the people in America got to see Romney, the individual that he is, without the hype, without the smear, without the campaigns. They saw a man who has a vision for the country, and for Canadians, that's a good thing. Because if the United States goes up, Canada automatically rises with it. And if they sink, we go down the same hole.
Yes. What is your opinion on the purpose of government?
The government really has a function to keep us safe and to allow a country to prosper. It has no business being in our kitchens, in our homes, in our schools, in our lives. It is supposed to be an overseer, in the sense of overlooking us and keeping us safe. It has tentacles now into absolutely everything, and it's just wrong, completely wrong.
Would you agree with the statement that it should be a referee and not a player in the game?
Absolutely, yes, yeah. And it's a case of, take schools as kind of a microcosm of everything. And if you look at what's happening in schools, you can almost look at what's happening all the way around you. For example, they take small schools in small communities and they shut them down, and they take those kids from those communities and they lump them into bigger communities. And when those slightly larger communities become not as big as they want, then they close those and they're moved into even bigger ones. The problem that occurs with that is that the original community loses a sense of connection with the school, with the education, with the children. The children themselves, they lose a connection with the community. Kids that grow up in a specific community, they become attached. They learn what attachment is to friends, to family. And they lose that in that society where it's all moved. You look at what they've done in schools, some of the rules they've recently put in. No child shall fail because it might hurt their psyche. Well, that might sound nice when someone is 5 years old or 6 years old. But now we are beginning to see what's happening in the real world with that. Kids are having a very difficult time handling the concept of failing. They don't get a job. Well, it's someone else's fault. It's not my fault. I did what I was supposed to do. I should have just automatically had it. If you look at the occupiers, all of them were quite willing to work, provided they started a job at $80,000 a year. This is what's currently happening because government is going where they don't belong.
You're currently the communications director of the International Free Press Society, Canadian chapter. What prompted you to become part of that organization defending free speech?
What people don't realize currently, and if they don't realize it soon, it won't matter if they do, that a country cannot function without the two sides of free speech. On one side, it's like a coin. On one side, you have free speech. The other side of that coin is rule of law. Free speech allows you as an individual to say whatever it is that you want to say, and if you cross the line, there are laws about you crossing the line. But until you've crossed that line, it shouldn't matter whether you hurt someone's dear little feelings, or whether you're saying something that's obscene, or whether you're saying something that's nasty. It does not matter. You should be able to say that, because if we're not able to talk to each other openly and honestly, we'll never get to the root of anything. All we will do is deal superficially, and because we only deal superficially, we'll never find anything out. And it's necessary to have that freedom of speech to be able to honestly see what's happening all around us. The world is changing, and it's changing drastically. And if we're not able to say, I like this and I don't like that, without some penalty, we'll never be able to change, or even more importantly, keep what we already have.
You mentioned rule of law, but Canada, for example, has blasphemy laws.
Yes.
Is that a law that you think we should have?
That's an ancient one. I mean, almost from the beginning of Confederation. No, we should not have blasphemy laws. And we should remove from our books those laws which are not applicable anymore. Blasphemy, of course, being one of them. Because if you look at a Canadian law, when was the last time you saw someone prosecuted for insulting Jesus, or insulting Buddha, or Vishnu, or the Vishnu? Yeah, it hasn't happened. The last time that there was a religious problem happened in France, I believe, the Last Temptation of Christ, and there was a riot in France, and that was the sum total of it. So that's a law that no longer is applicable.
But there is a move in the United Nations to adopt blasphemy laws worldwide. So perhaps are we going to see this law stay on the books, or are we going to remove it?
No, actually, the law that the United Nations is attempting to bring in is completely different than the blasphemy laws that we have in here. The law that the United Nations is attempting to bring in is primarily for one group.
The Organization of Islamic States.
You have it. That's exactly what it's in there for. It's designed so that we cannot discuss openly all of the religions of the world. I'm not going to specifically point out Islamism, but indeed that's what it's primarily pointed to. As I've often said in the past, you look at the many times that Jesus Christ has been maligned, God has been maligned, the Virgin Mary has been maligned, and any other religious icon has been maligned. There are no deaths, there are no riots, there are no killings, but you make one mention of Islam in some form, and there are riots. And we're told, well, you know there's going to be riots, so don't do it. Well, I'm sorry, but that goes back to the original point, freedom of speech. If I can't discuss that issue, how am I going to learn? How am I going to judge? How is anyone going to if we can't talk about it?
What are your opinions on official multiculturalism? I think the two go hand in hand, free speech, the Islamic question, and multiculturalism. This is a multicultural society, or would you agree with even that statement? Is it a multicultural society?
No, it's not.
What kind of a society do we have here?
They're individual little, well, I refer to them as fiefdoms. Before Pierre Trudeau brought in multiculturalism, what we
finally adopted by the progressive conservative government under Mulroney, by the way.
Yes, I understand that part. Yeah. And it was at that point that I moved away and decided not to be in politics for a while. But back then, people didn't realize how bad it was. And just to let you know how bad it was, a year before Pierre Trudeau passed away, a reporter asked him about multiculturalism and said, "Is it what you envisioned it to be?" He simply said, "No," and walked away. Now, multiculturalism. Prior to that being brought in, individuals coming to Canada, they assimilated in the sense that they became a part of Canada, the country. You had every type of country, or every type of individual from any country living next door to any other country. And there was not a problem with individuals working in the same factories, same restaurants, same stores, whatever. What they did then, each of these nationalities kept their heritage alive. My heritage being a combination of Ukrainian and Polish. Well, we knew many people of those two ethnics, and we would get together. The ladies would keep the dress code alive, and we would do the various foods and so on. And that was fine. But there was no rule to say that you had to respect what I believe. You either did or you didn't. That was your choice. We couldn't force that on you. With multiculturalism, you have to believe what I believe. You have to accept what I accept, whether you want to or not. And that's wrong. That's just absolutely wrong. So instead of people coming together, now what they're actually doing is they're creating their own little groups, their own little societies, and living in their own little worlds. They're creating their own little countries right in Canada.
Not unlike the fact that we are not a bilingual nation. We are a duolingual nation. You have your English-speaking people, you have your French-speaking people. The number of people who actually speak both languages is, in the thick of it, rather small as a percentage.
Yeah.
So this is the similar sort of situation with multiculturalism. You have in this neighborhood, you have one particular ethnicity. In this neighborhood, you have another ethnicity, and the two do not mix.
No. Their cultures from where they came, they didn't mix. And so when they come to Canada, they carry that on, and they no longer mix here as well. That is what they knew, and so they simply carry that on. Whereas prior to multiculturalism, the people who came to Canada, they came for a better life. And they understood that to have that better life, they had to become a part of that better life, not live apart from that better life, which is occurring today.
You and the International Free Press Society have brought into Canada a number of notable people, notable for their opinion about multiculturalism, Islam, the failure of some Muslims to integrate. Could you just go through some of the names that you've helped bring in?
Of course, the most notorious would have been Geert Wilders,
from the Netherlands Freedom Party.
From the Freedom Party, who made the film Fitna.
Yes. And
he has 24-hour guards. He cannot live in the same place because he lives constantly under death threats. He has said something and produced something that has gotten him into that situation. Sam Solomon, there have been...
who is a Muslim.
Who is a Muslim himself, who came to teach and who became a Christian. And he's come to Canada and around the world, literally, to teach what Islam really is and why he left it to become the individuals that he is.
And now as an Muslim apostate, he has death threats against him as well.
It was only within the last year or two that Sam allowed his picture to actually be posted, so that people could see what it is that he looks like.
Yeah. Some other guests that you brought in?
Oh, my mind has just gone blank, Robert.
Lars Hedegaard, perhaps, from Dispatch International.
Yes.
Ingrid Carlqvist, again, from a journalist.
Recently, yes.
Yeah, from Sweden, at Dispatch International. Did you have anything to do with Ann Coulter coming to town?
Actually, I was only on the sidelines for that one. It was about the time that Ann Coulter came in that I was signing up to International Free Press, and you asked me earlier what was it that made me sign up. When I saw what happened with Ann Coulter, it doesn't matter what you think of Ann Coulter. It doesn't matter what you think of what she does or what she stands for. This is supposed to be a free society. This is supposed to be a society where an individual can have their say and then you discuss it. But in her case, she was literally shut down.
In Ottawa.
In Ottawa, literally shut down. They caused such a scene that they just said, no, you're not going on. And it was at that point I jumped back in and said, okay, I've got to do something here. So that was, in answer to your question earlier, that was what got me to join the International Free Press Society. It was right after that.
Your outlook for Canada and free speech, a free press?
Hopeful, I guess would be the best word that I can use. My outlook for Canada is better than that. My outlook for Canada, as long as they keep following the path that they're going on, it will take a long time to get us to where Stephen Harper promised he was going to take us, but he will eventually get us there. That much I do know. But free speech, I am very, very wary of free speech. The difficulty there being that so many people now have got to the point where they see the government as being their parent. They see the government as providing for them. And once they've done that, what they've given up is they've given up this idea that they're responsible for anything. And worse than that, they've given up on the idea that they're responsible for what other people do as well. There was a time when you had a problem, it was our problem. And we as a society would deal with that problem together. And now it's become a society where that's just not how it is. Now society, if you have a problem, you work it out. I got my own problems to look after. And that's a part of the heart in society that is dying. And it's just not there anymore.
It's probably a fait accompli that Justin Trudeau will be the leader of the Liberal Party. I see from your reaction you have opinions about Justin Trudeau. What if he became the Prime Minister of Canada with a majority government? Where would you see Canada going under another Trudeau government?
I think on the first airplane somewhere else, as a country, just pack it up and go. I honestly can't see Justin Trudeau becoming the Prime Minister. There will be a lot of hoopla and speculation about it. In an interview, in actual fact, he made a comment which I thought was, for Justin Trudeau, was rather right on the mark. And that was, someone asked him about all this hoopla. And he said, well, tell you what, check back next week and see if I'm still on the front page. Words to that effect. And I thought, yes, that is excellent, because hopefully you won't be there anymore. No. Again, he has made comments of Quebec needs to be a nation unto itself. The whole rhetoric that Pierre Trudeau had, he has instilled in him, and whether he tries to bring that back or not, I don't know.
Do you have anything else to add?
Just a little story.
Yeah.
Back to the issue of schools and what's going on in society today and how it's a part of society. I became the type of individual that I came through school. I went to school in a one-room schoolhouse with grades 1 through 8 with one teacher. And if teachers nowadays think they have a problem, try running that one. Now, the only way that school functioned was the older grades would help look after the younger grades as the teacher taught the middle grades, that type of thing. So, because you were a part of the whole, you learned that you were a part of something. You learned that you could help by helping the younger kids. You learned that you could help the teacher, and it really gave you this sense of being a part of the unit, a part of the community, a part of everything. And that has helped me to carry on this concept of you're not alone, and you shouldn't look at yourself alone. You should look at yourself as being a part of a unit, a part of society, that you can help.
So what is the core unit of society? Would you say it's the individual or the family? Or the society or community?
Family.
That's a very conservative
Yes.
point of view.
It is, and as I've said all along, yeah, I'm still a conservative at heart. I definitely am still a conservative, and I would hope that we would move more to more conservative values. But the individual is important in the sense that if we don't have individual freedoms, we have nothing. Because if the individual can't speak, if the individual can't do, then you become nothing more than a dictatorship.
Well, a family is just an amalgam of individuals, so perhaps
Yes.
the individual, like you say, if the individual does not have any rights, you're not going to have a family.
Correct. And a family to me is it's kind of like an example of the world as a whole. If you have a family unit that's functioning, then those kids in that family unit, when they move into the bigger world, know how to function within the bigger world. They've been allowed to make their own decisions to a point. They've been allowed to handle their own things. They've been allowed to learn. They've been allowed to fail. They've had to have battles with their siblings, and they've had to settle those things. They've learned to debate with their parents. They've learned how to cajole and get their way or not get their way. All of those lessons are necessary in the real world. That's a family unit. And those are lessons that are only taught in those circumstances.
Al Gretzky, thank you very much.
It's been my pleasure, Rob.